Pittsburgh Steeler fans, welcome back to another episode of the Scho Bro Show. This is Behind the Steel Curtain editor Dave Schofield coming at you. It's Tuesday night. It's just after 9 p.m. Week 1 is in the books. And with me, as always, my big brother Rich. Rich, how's it going tonight?
Oh, this is going to feel so good to breathe in that sweet smell of victory.
Oh, my goodness. I'll tell you what, the post-game show podcast, it was so much fun. It was like a real post-game show. The preseason, they were all primetime games, so we were all dragging by the end of it. I mean, wasn't just that it was the right time of day. It was just what happened. Go ahead.
The only way I knew what was going on the podcast was by watching what was going on in the live chat.
Uh-huh.
Because I will answer, because Cree's going to ask me sooner rather than later on here. No Cree, no deer for the freezer on Sunday night, unfortunately. So I was out in the tree stand, and so I brought up just so I could keep an eye on what was going on in the live chat. So I couldn't hear you guys talking at all.
You know what? That was probably just as good. Just following the live chat. And boy, was it a crazy live chat.
Oh my gosh, yes, it was.
We're going crazy. But I mean, it's interesting because when it came to this game, I have to remind people, I put this out on Twitter, I put it in my numbers article, to understand how big of a deal this was. The Pittsburgh Steelers had not won a game where they were underdogs by 6.5 points or more since December of 2012 in Baltimore. And that was the Charlie Batch game. If you know what I'm talking about.
I knew that. That one came up with, after that game was one of my favorite ever Pittsburgh Dad episodes. So,
yeah. So, I mean,
that's
nine seasons. Now, granted, that was towards the end of the season. This was in week 1. But 9 seasons since that's happened with the Steelers. Now, granted, a lot of that is that they're not always that much of an underdog. So some people are like, that's because people were counting the Steelers out a lot. I mean, some people were curious about that line being what it was because Buffalo was and I do believe still is, a very popular pick to reach the Super Bowl this year. Then you're going to their house. The Steelers have several new coaches, including an offensive coordinator, almost an entirely new offensive line, some changes in the defense, which we will get to. I understand why they were underdogs. I understand because the last time they were on the field, not in preseason, it was a performance that Steelers fans would love to forget. But I kept saying this offseason, the Pittsburgh Steelers believe that this is a team that was very, very close last year. They won 11 straight games, and you got people that want to poo-poo that and say, look who they played and blah, blah, blah. All you can do is beat the teams you're matched up against. You know what? They crushed the Browns. They beat the Ravens twice. Granted, one time they were decimated with COVID stuff, but the Steelers got everything twisted around for their week, and they went to Tennessee and beat the Titans. I mean, they did they still had good wins along the way last year. It just they fizzled out. They didn't finish strong, but the Steelers felt like because of that they were really close, that they were on the cusp, and that they just needed to do a few things. But other people didn't feel that way. But it doesn't matter what other people thought. And now I said, if the Steelers win this game, look out, because I mean, I'll ask you, do you remember what you had for the Steelers record for the year?
I do not.
I know because it's documented. I had 11-6. I had 11-6. I thought that was good.
I think I gave him
10. Double-digit wins, and I've had people. Let's not go into that. Constantly calling me out. When are you going to defend your 11-6 when I'm going 6-11? Blah 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 blah. Here, I'll tell you why, and everything else. And I'm like, I went 11-6. I went game by game. But
isn't it awful that all you had to do is bring that up? I know exactly who you're talking about.
Yeah. Anyway, And who knows? There's still 16 more games to be played. So we don't put the cart before the horse. Don't put the cart before the horse. But still, my whole point of this, if you were ambitious, and let's say you even had the Steelers win in 12 games, or let's say you went crazy, said they're going to go 13-4. Chances are this was one of the ones that you had as a loss. If you were the most ultimate, well, not to a ridiculous point that you're going to pick the Steelers to go 17-0, but if you were saying, hey, I'm really optimistic about this team, I think they're going to win 13 games. I don't know if anyone has seriously picked them to win more than 13 games. This was still going to be one of those games that you would chalk up as a loss. This was one of the hardest games on their schedule. Between this one, going to Kansas City, probably, who knows how the rest of the AFC North is going to be when it all comes around. But these were games that you looked at as being the most difficult games in the schedule, and they won it. Yeah. And they went in there and took care of business and won it. That is the whole reason behind the title of tonight's episode, which I'm going to screw up unless I actually read it. Says, is it too early to get excited about the 2021 Steelers? Is it too early to get excited about the Steelers, Rich?
It's never too early to get excited. What changes as the year goes around is what you can be excited about. Like, I have a couple things in particular that very much excited me about that game.
Yeah.
And at some point you're going to have to let me hit on them because they're very different things that I was excited about.
Okay, we'll get to that. I want to bring up this comment. Wes said, for the record, Dave, yes, I picked them to go 13-4. That's ambitious. And Wes said, this was a loss for me. This was a loss for me. So that's the thing. Even the people that thought the Steelers could win almost all of their games still didn't think this was one of the ones there was too many things for the Steelers to have to get together. When I did my staff prediction, people told me I was crazy because of something that I said. And I'll say I didn't pick the Steelers to win this game. I picked them to cover. In the staff picks, I had the Steelers picked. I'm like, I think they'll cover. It's going to be tough to really pull out the win. I actually gave a scenario where they were getting ready to tie the game to go to overtime, and there was like a bad snap. So many little things that were new, like a bad snap, a bad hold, things like that could have happened. But in my prediction, I predicted the Bills to score 17 points. And I said, I am the most confident, believe it or not, in the defense holding the Bills to 17 points. I just wasn't confident enough in the Steelers to score enough to win.
Yeah. And
what do you know? They scored 16 points. So I was pretty close with that. But at the same time, there were people that were ready to write the Steelers off at halftime when they were down 10-0. Like Jeff Hartman said, the people in his mentions, absolutely crazy. They were ready to write the Steelers off at halftime. And they came out, they did their thing. The offensive line still wasn't great, but was better. And speaking of offensive line, let's bring up the super chat, $5 from Sean Manahan. He says, seeing the way Villanueva looked last night made me think TJ is really going to be looking forward to the matchup. I don't think so, Sean. I don't think he's going to last till December. Steelers don't play him till December. I don't know that it's going to last that long. So that's the only thing.
I forget which story I was reading on the website today where someone made a comment. Boy, Baltimore, looking really good. You traded away because you basically had two. You felt you had two left tackles, and you trade one away. Then that played left tackle, move the other one from right tackle to left tackle, and then do what? Bring in another guy who was a left tackle, but not as good as the guy you traded away.
Yeah,
stick him at right tackle. It's like
and there was a reason the Steelers didn't bring him back. I mean, I love Big Al as a person. I love what he did when he was with the Steelers, but sometimes you hit a point where it's over, and that's what happened. And it was so funny to see the SB Nation site of the Baltimore Ravens, which is called Baltimore Beatdown, which I think is ironic because I'm like, is that what you're giving or is that what you're receiving?
Yeah.
But they said they tagged us in a tweet, behind the steel curtain and said, maybe we should have listened to you about that. And when we were saying, oh, yeah, look at us. We got your left tackle. We got your 2-time All-Pro left tackle. Like, take him. The only thing that would have made that even better is it would have happened to count to the compensatory formula because
that would have been nice. But
let's, you know what?
That's okay.
It was brought up. We were going to mention that anyway, but I got to go off on a little something here, okay?
No, you're going to go off on something?
Yeah, what do you know? I mean, you're going to be surprised. You're like, yeah, I am going to go off. Okay, there were a couple things in this game before you get to bring up some of these points that I know you really want to bring up. Some people were quite critical of the Bills coach, who I think is a fantastic coach, Sean McDermott, and his decisions, his 2 fourth-down decisions. Now, Jeff Hartman made a good point about the first one, but I had made up my mind. But then Jeff made a good point. I'm like, I expected him to go for that 4th and 8. It was too long for a field goal. If you put it in the end zone, you're getting like 20 yards or something. And he believed that his offense could do it. Jeff's point was the Steelers' defense is great. It's going to be hard to get 8 yards. And the offense was struggling. Why not pin them deep? That's a good point too. I could see both ways. People want to roast him because it didn't work. Then you look at the other fourth down play where they ran the play. And I'll be 100% honest with you. If you told me as a coach that I could get the ball in the hands of my running back, and the only person that could stop him is a cornerback, and I have my fullback free to block him, I'll take it every time.
Yeah.
And say, we're going to win that battle. Because if that fullback is able to block Cam Sutton and he doesn't make that play, not only is that's at least a 20-yard gain, if not a touchdown. But Cam Sutton didn't allow himself to get blocked, made a fantastic play. My thing is, was that a bad decision to go on that 4th and 1? And the answer is, it's all outcome based, isn't it?
Oh yeah.
I mean, if they only get 1 yard and get the conversion there, then he's a genius for going out for it on 4th and 1, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So, which is funny because then Sean Manahan throws in $5. He said, Bill, play calling reminded me of Randy Land. It's not the play calling. It's 1, the execution, and 2, fooling the defense, which they didn't do. The defense did what they needed to do to get that done. So the reason that kind of bugs me is outcome-based conclusions. Drives me nuts. Oh, it's terrible, coach. Terrible call. Okay. We do the same thing about, I was overly critical about the Steelers punting on at the first play of the 4th quarter in their playoff game. Overly critical. You know what? If they go for that on the 4th and 1 and they don't get it, then it's like, oh, you handed him the game. If they do get it, he's a genius. It's all outcome based from that point on. And there's so many things that we judge about. I mean, people were still debating about the onside kick at the end of the playoff game in 2017, which statistically I still say was the right call, because how often do you actually lose yardage because of a penalty and put the team in field goal range automatically? Anyway, but people are like, oh, it's such a terrible call, because it's all outcome based, which brings me to this. Those people out there, you're idiots if you're saying, I'm already calling you idiots before I even tell you who you are. Oh, anybody who picked the Bills to win, you're just a fair weather fan. That you don't even know what that word means. Okay. You don't know what that word means, because you want to know what? Anybody that covers the Steelers or follows the Steelers, like our staff picks everything else, if the Steelers don't win that game, guess what you're saying? Oh, those people that pick the Steelers, you're just homers. You need to actually study the football and get a football IQ. It's all outcome based. And you're saying it's a fair. So I'm sorry, live chat. Most of you must be fair weather fans, because a lot of you picked the Bills to win this game. And I don't blame you one bit, because you want to have some credibility. But people that say that, and I know some people are really critical of the national media for not picking the Steelers. You know what? I really don't blame them. You know what I'm going to blame them? When they turn around and don't pick them this week. That's what I'm going to blame them. Okay. So if you think if you think that someone, to be a serious person who covers the Steelers, must pick them every game, you're an idiot. So sorry, that's my rating.
To me, that's why my pick was 24-23 Bills. I thought it could be tight. To me, for the Steelers to win, a couple things had to go right for them. some of which I'm going to talk about here in a little bit.
Yes. So I'm sorry I had to go out on that bit of a rant, but I'm just like, I understand if you're like, ha ha ha. Yeah. I'm like, I love it that the Steelers won. I thought that I kept saying, you all right? Okay. I'm saying,
I'm all right.
Okay. Your mic's going crazy. I thought they could win. I thought they could. I just didn't know that they could pull it all together. I'm like, with questions on the defense. Well, first of all, we've got no questions with stuff went on defense. Rich, you bring up what you would like to talk about in this past week while we're at it.
I want to bring up one is a straight up statement, and the other one is a potential point or something to think about. Okay. Keith Butler's scheme.
Okay.
Was phenomenal.
Okay. We
did not play what people have gotten used to be regular Steeler football, and especially some of the Steeler defensive football under Keith Butler. We spent most of that game rushing 4. Yep. Rushing 4, dropping 7.
I've seen 2 reports. One that the Steelers blitzed once, one that the Steelers blitzed twice. Mm-hmm. And it's funny because I actually did the Mike Tomlin press conference podcast on the audio side today. I filled in for Jeff because he had a dentist appointment. I couldn't believe I said this. I'm like, I'm such a nerd, but I'm like, it doesn't matter if it was 1 blitz, 2 blitz, red blitz, blue blitz.
Right. Yeah.
So I'm like, I was like, did I just say that? Can I go cut that out? But yeah, it was only 1 or 2.
Right. I can remember the one. The one I remember because it was Trey Norwood who blitzed. So he blitzed the one time. But anyway, the whole plan of rushing 4, dropping 7. But I think part of the reason Keith Butler did that was because he said, you know what? I like the 4 guys I'm rushing. I think we can still get pressure.
You
okay?
Are,
which leads me, which kind of leads me to one of my points, and that was all right. So everybody that's out there probably knows how much of a Star Wars fan Dave is, right? Like he is. Yes, he is a Star Wars fan like crazy. I like Star Wars, but probably not near like Dave. Where I'm the much bigger fan is Marvel.
Mm-hmm. Well, so am I, but
you're a fan of Marvel, but I know you're not a Marvel fan like I'm a Marvel fan. Okay. So all I kept thinking yesterday and today about one particular player on the Steelers, I had a scene from a Marvel movie and a quote. Okay. And it's from Avengers Infinity War. And all I could see was someone being down on the Bills sideline, looking out at the Steelers defense and saying, looking at number 97 and saying, who's that dude? And somebody turning him and in their best Drax voice saying, that is not a dude. You are a dude. That is a man.
That is a man. My goodness. Yeah. Hey, real quick.
Sure.
I got to clarify this. Brian Brown says, must be an idiot. I'm not picking against the Steelers. I'm not saying you're an idiot if you pick the Steelers. I'm saying you're an idiot if you think that anyone who ever picks against the Steelers is a fair weather fan. That was my point. I think we get that now. So go ahead.
All right. So really, Keith Butler's scheme is pretty much staying nickel and dime the whole game to defend the pass and letting his 4 guys up front still just wreak havoc on Josh Allen all day.
Yeah.
Was phenomenal. Yeah. All right. The second thing, and this is more of a question potentially, because it's not 100% known. But, so those of you that have listened for a while out there know that I spent, 11 years as a member of the tribe down at William and Mary doing some work. And we know that both Coach Tomlin and Coach McDermott were members of the tribe. I also noticed a lot last year in Buffalo games that Coach McDermott and his staff seemed to be the masters of halftime adjustments.
Yes, they were.
Was there any thought that Matt Canada stayed more vanilla in the first half and didn't make adjustments sooner? Because the Steelers didn't want to give the Bills the opportunity to make the halftime adjustments. And we came out and threw some different things at them come second half. Oh, much different outcome.
I think you are 80% correct there.
Yeah.
I'm going to tweak it.
Okay.
I don't know that they kept it vanilla or whatever. I think they might have had. I never thought about this till you brought this up.
They had a
first half plan,
yes,
and a second half plan that they knew that there were things that they were going to do in the second half that they weren't going to show in the first half unless they had to. And I mean, they had so few possessions and everything else. So, and they were in the game the whole time.
Correct.
I mean, do you realize neither team reached the red zone until inside the 2-minute warning of the first half?
Yes.
Neither team.
Yes.
So that's a really good point that it might have been like, hey, if they're going to adjust to what we do in the first half, then we're going to have we're going to have another plan for half number 2. That is a really good point. I don't know if they did it, but I tell you what, they should have if they didn't, because that's what they in essence did. Yeah.
It looked like it.
Yeah.
Some of the plays in the second half just looked so much different than anything we'd run in the first half.
That's a really good point. You know, that you're like, I see, to me as a coach, that's more to me, because I just want to go out and do our best all the time and win early and blah, blah, blah.
But part of that is me, you know, spending 11 years down there with Twampy people, and I should explain what that means. TWAMP is an acronym. It stands for Typical William and Mary Person. And that's what people at William and Mary call each other when they get kind of nerdy or geeky or things like that. They're twomps. And so I started thinking about the two coaches and how Tomlin could probably see how good McDermott is at making all those halftime adjustments. And they thought, well, you know what? We're going to just do things totally different, both halves.
So it's funny because people were like, oh, the Steelers made great halftime adjustments. They made great halftime adjustments. Did they make them at halftime? Or was that the plan the whole time?
Right. I think it was the plan the whole time.
I mean,
now they made a few defensive adjustments.
Yeah.
But nothing. They didn't make great, big, huge adjustments. But I suddenly saw some plays in the second half from that offense that I was like, wow, why didn't we try that in the first half? Yeah. Then I got to think more and more about it, and I thought,
And since you brought up Cam Hayward, I don't want to lose this one. Nope, it's another $5 from Sean Manahan in the tip jar. Man, thanks, Sean. You know, just $5 at a time. Here he goes. He says, wait till it's Cam and Tuitt on the line, and all three rushers, Melvin, Bush, I think he means Watt and Highsmith, all linebacker on the same play.
Yep.
Yeah, and do you realize that the Steelers only went with two defensive? I mean, they played sub package the whole game.
Yep.
The whole game. That's what they did. But like Coach Tomlin was saying today, whether it was the not blitzing, whether it was the sub packaging, whatever, he's like, we did what we felt we needed to do that game.
Yes.
Next week, we'll do what else we feel like we need to do that game.
That game. Yeah.
You know?
And that's how a team should be coached.
Yeah.
That's how game plans should be drawn up, doing what you need to do for that particular opponent.
Yeah. Do it. So. Yeah, exactly. And I mean, Cam Sutton, when you look at, I mean, we have a Steelers Vertex coming out tomorrow. It's about Cam Sutton because last year, Jeffrey and I looked at the Bills, the halftime adjustment that they made on offense, where they got Stephon Diggs on the other side of the formation to get him on Cam Sutton, all except like the one play he had that was a touchdown, and how he just exploded in 2 drives and got almost all his stats in those 2 drives. Cam Sutton looked like a completely different player. I mean, it didn't matter. He was not, it seemed like there was no paralysis by analysis. He was reacting and going fast. Even when he was giving Diggs a big cushion. Jeffrey has a clip that you'll see in the article tomorrow. If you got to come check it out, where he drops off Diggs runs, cuts his route off, and Sutton flies to him and tackles him shy of the sticks.
Yeah.
That he was just, he did the same thing on the 4th down play. He flew to it. He didn't hesitate. He went right to it. He was confident in what he was doing. It just seemed like the game had slowed down for him.
They had him going read, react, not read, decide, react.
Yeah.
Just read, react.
You are right. So, yeah, that's crazy. Now people are talking about the antlers coming out of your head. Sorry. So these were a few things. I get it. So the question is, what do you have another point? Because you've already made a couple of really good points. I don't want to cut you off.
Those were my two big things, was the offensive point and then just the whole defensive point / Cam Hayward was a man.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not a dude.
Yeah, Javier says Sutton gets my game ball. The question is, Javier, did you come and check out the article at BehindTheSteelCurtain.com, your one-stop shop for all things Pittsburgh Steelers? It was an idea I came up with late Sunday night, and I ran it by Jeff. I said, I can do this earlier, but if you want me to, I can still do it late tonight. He's like, do it. We'll do it every week. We're doing a BTSC game ball. And I'm nominating 5 players after the game. It's always going to be players. It's not going to be coaches. We're going to stick to players to give a game ball. I'm going to give a little bit better explanation of what a game ball is in the future. A game ball doesn't necessarily mean you're the best player on the field. Okay, a game ball means that you did something extra special that stood out. And, sometimes, it's the tradition of a coach. They have a ball after the game. Like in high school, you have your game ball. And sometimes you're just like, hey, this is for you. Sometimes it's where like a player, I remember one time giving where I didn't do it, but I was on the coaching staff where a coach gave a game ball to a kid whose grandmother died that week. And he came out and he played hard, and they gave him the game ball. So the game ball doesn't necessarily go to, who's the best player on it goes to someone who really went and made a big difference. So that's going to be an article that we're going to run game days after. If it's a 1:00 game, I don't know how it's going to work on other ones. So make sure you check that out, BehindTheSteelCurtain.com, your one-stop shop for all things Pittsburgh Steelers. We got more in Super Chat here, bro. We got Thanks Mean Joe, $5 in the tip jar.
Thanks Mean Joe.
I'm hoping this is appropriate because I didn't read it before I brought it up. He's thanks, Mean Joe, if this is a good comment. Here's what it comes down to. Steelers defense will keep them in position to win every game. Get that O-line rolling. Steelers win 7th Super Bowl ring. You know what, Joe? That I saw Thanks Mean Joe, and I'm like, I'm going to trust this comment. And boy, was it a good one. See, you didn't let me down. You didn't let me down.
Well,
that was my point throughout the offseason with people that were so down on the Steelers. I'm like, do you not realize how good this defense still is? Oh, but they lost Bud Dupree. Oh, but they lost too much at the corner. It's so funny because I put this in our staff Slack channel. During the commercial break, I was watching the game with our dad. He was down because my mom was in town to go to a bridal shower that my wife took her to. So my dad was here to watch the game with me. It was fantastic. So during the time, there was times during commercials, I would flip over to Red Zone for him just so he could see what was going on otherwise. And what do you know? The one time we flip over just in time on a 4th down play to see Adam Thielen catch a short pass and take it the whole way for a touchdown against none other than Mike Hilton, So I didn't see anything else in that game to know what kind of game he had. I know Bud Dupree had 1 tackle and had a really low PFF score. Tennessee Titans fans are upset about that. We already talked about the whole Big Al stuff. It's kind of like they're like, oh, the Steelers lost these players. But the Steelers had in mind what they were going to do. It was on the website today. I don't know if you saw Michael's article about, is this the best trio of edge rushers that the Steelers have had? The fact that they have 3. How'd you feel about the edge rushers on
oh Sunday, my goodness. To me, it's fantastic because especially with TJ coming in, not having a whole lot of regular contact before this game. You're worried about how his stamina would be. Yeah, and everybody else, man, they just rotated those 3 guys constantly, and it didn't matter who was in there. They were getting near the quarterback and knocking the quarterback down and just wreaking havoc. Loved it.
Yeah. Just to know, out of the 85 snaps, TJ played 69 snaps. Melvin Ingram played 54. Alex Highsmith played 46.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how it broke down.
I thought it was a fantastic division of the snaps.
Yeah.
should keep all the guys happy.
Yeah. And Jameer Jones got one. Sorry.
Yes.
Forgot that one. Okay.
So, I mean, really, that was pretty nice.
And Coach Tomlin addressed that. He did today in the press conference. He's like, I'm not going to set up to make it have to be a certain number in a certain way all the time. We're just going to do what needs to be done because we have capable people of doing it. So with that, I don't think we're quite done talking about this game. We're going to get to the next game, but there's a few more things that we're going to pick up with when we come back from the break, but we will get into then this week's game because I got some kind of important stuff to say about that. Okay. But we're still trying to determine if it's time to get excited about this Steelers team. I think you can tell by our level of excitement what the answer really is. So if you're with us on the audio side, go ahead and click to part 2. If you're with us here on YouTube or Facebook Live, give us a few seconds and we'll be right back. Pittsburgh Steelers fans, welcome back to part 2 of the Scho Bro Show. This is Behind the Steel Curtain editor Dave Schofield. With me, as always, my big brother Rich. Rich, still doing great.
Welcome to the Scho Bro Show. Because
okay.
I got to say that the second half now because I got to breathe in that.
I was going to say it was such a big victory. Breathe it in again, bro. Breathe it in again.
That was a good one.
Yeah, it really was.
You just should have heard what Kyle and I sounded like in our living room because we got that lead 13-10, and the defense comes out, and I'm like, okay, let's hold them and get the ball back and get down, score a touchdown. Not only that, when they blocked that punt, you should have heard the two of us. It was like,
I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah.
Yes. It was the punt. Well, that's another thing I wanted to talk about. I was not sure if the offense could get enough done in this game. The offense scored on every possession they had in the second half, except when they took victory formation. Now they only got one touchdown.
Right. But that also goes to show those changes that went on at halftime.
Yeah, those changes that went on at halftime, which I never thought of that till you brought. That was if you're stumbling on to part 2 and didn't catch part 1, you got to go back and do it because Rich brought up the point of, did the Steelers specifically have a different game plan for the second half because they know how much who they play, the Bills, how much the Bills are notorious for halftime adjustments. And that was a really good point. Very good point. If that's it, that's one of those one step ahead coaching moves, if that's what they did. But even if it wasn't, I like it. But it's also at the same time, what the offense had to do in the second half was, what are defenses trying to do to the Steelers? They're crowding the line of scrimmage to take away the run and the short pass.
Correct.
Because they don't think that you're going to beat them otherwise. The Steelers had to get the ball beyond, beyond the box is basically the way to say it. They had to get the ball beyond the box, extended to both sidelines. Because if all you're doing is pitching the ball out 2 yards behind the line of scrimmage, or two yards past the line of scrimmage, all the way to the sideline, that's not much either. You had to get that ball past that zone and actually to exploit that defense. If you want to know what you're talking about, did you watch the whole Monday night game last night?
I saw very little of the Monday night game last night, actually.
Yeah.
But a few times I turned it on, I was.
You saw the turnstile, right?
I saw the turnstile at right tackle for the Ravens.
Yeah.
So that was pretty.
Yes.
Yeah. I think I got to see about 20 snaps total.
Yeah.
And like 3 or 4 of them involved the turnstile.
Oh, well, I was working on stuff for the site, but I made sure I was tuned into the last 5 minutes of regulation and an overtime. And on the second touchdown, if you know what I mean, where they almost scored, if you saw highlights where the Raiders scored the touchdown, the guy was down. I felt the ball should have been spotted at the half-yard line. They put it at the 1. They only get a half yard of the next play. Then the penalty, then the turnover. Anyway, but on the touchdown that ended the game, Baltimore had everyone at the box. And all the Raiders had to do was run a play beyond it. And that's what they did. Now it's not going to be that easy because they completely sold out, the Ravens had. But at the same time, that's kind of what the Steelers are going to need to do. They need to have that next level play because teams just don't believe that that's the way that the Steelers will be able to beat them. But, the tight ends, weren't targeted a bunch in the game, but when they were, it was huge. So
Had one
offense,
decent what I call an intermediate pass to Ebron, and one of those nice intermediate passes to Muth, and they were both perfect, just what we needed.
Yeah. And so I kind of we didn't talk too much about the offense. So I wanted to do that before we move on to this week. And that is, the 54 yards of offense in the first half. That was the big talking point. Oh, this team can't score, but they scored on every drive. I have a hypothetical question for you.
Yep.
The Steelers get the big punt block and touchdown. If that's just a regular old punt, what do you think the offense would have done there?
Kick the field goal.
I think they would have got at least 3.
Yeah.
So I still had the confidence in the offense there because that was still when the offense was attacking.
And we were going to have
a different mentality.
Position.
Yeah.
We were going to have decent field position.
And the offense was still an attack mentality. They had a 3-point lead at the time, correct?
Yep.
If I recall right.
When they scored a touchdown on their previous possession.
Yep. Took the 3-point lead. I still think they wouldn't have been playing it taking it easy like they did when they got the ball the last time to go get the field goal. I wouldn't say they weren't going for the jugular. They were doing what they needed to do, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So I still had confidence that I think they would have put points on the board there because it seemed that that was the way things were going. Teams are going to see what the Steelers did in the second half there. And it's not like they were like, oh, lights out, super impressive. But they're going to say, hey, we got to be ready for this, that, or the other thing. I mean, how much confidence do you still have in this? Do you have in this offense right now after that game?
Well, see, what I didn't have a ton of confidence in going into the game. I didn't have a lot of confidence in them at halftime.
Yeah.
What the second half offensively gives me is a glimmer of excitement. The thoughts of what could be.
Yes. Yeah. I liked
not what is
the scheme. Yeah.
But they showed me what could be.
Yeah. And I mean, Kevin Dotson didn't have a very good game on the O-line. Dan Moore Jr. held his own.
I wouldn't call it an awful game, but he wasn't the dominant.
He wasn't the standout that you saw.
Correct.
Exactly. It wasn't like he was oh my goodness, look at what he just did there. I thought Trey Turner had some really good moments.
Yeah.
Dan Moore struggled early, but did much better in the second half. Kendrick Green is a very emotional player. I think that's why he was pulled out for 3 plays. I think he was getting a little bit too much, but I mean, he moves well in space. I mean, not just that Claypool run where if Claypool just would have used him a little bit better, they're like, oh, he missed the block. No, Claypool moved to where the guy could get around his blocker,
Right. Claypool
you don't expect your lineman to move like your wide receiver.
Right. Claypool should have.
Still, he was out there. Oh, and my
Claypool could have set the guy up where the guy had no choice but to get blocked by Quadric Green. And he did not. He chose to stretch it out to the outside, and as where if he would have just held it there for a second, gone straight up the field, would have forced the guy into Green, and he probably scores a touchdown.
Yeah. And that I actually said that to my dad. I'm like, that should have been a touchdown there. I'm like, if they don't get this touchdown, that's 4 points that they left on the field. And I feel like they did. They did leave 4 points on the field there.
To me, that is a difference between that being Chase Claypool coming around on that play and Najee Harris coming around, or Ant Mac, or a running back would have set up the blocker. A wide receiver's not used to having a big lineman out there in front of him.
You are completely right. I mean, unless you're running one of those wide receiver screens where they're zipping out there, that you're right. That's not something that happens with them nearly as much as with the running backs. So you're spot on there. But I'm not going to criticize. I mean, it was still a fantastic play. You know what I'm saying? But not only that, Coach Tomlin said something today that was very important. He said about his young wide receivers and how they stuck with it. He's like, they didn't have a lot of opportunities in the first half. They really didn't. He said, but they weren't complaining. They weren't upset. They stayed mentally in the game, and then all of them were making big plays when they needed in the second half. You know what I mean? So,
oh, Deontay Johnson circus catch for the touchdown was phenomenal.
I mean, people want to talk about the drops, but I mean, that wouldn't have even been a drop if he doesn't catch that ball, if you know what I mean, because I think the defender had his hand on it as well.
Mm-hmm.
But to come down with it, you've got to remember those two.
Yep.
Even if it wasn't for a touchdown, if he just would have been a regular, at a different spot on the field, that was a big play.
Get that super chat, then let's transition.
Yeah, we got to transition. This is from Wilfredo Vasquez 11, $5 in the tip jar. Hope I got that name good. Thank you for that. It says, just logged in. I'll listen to this tomorrow while working, but man, it's nice to smell victory. Here we go. There we go, bro. Yeah, I still got to take that victory. Smell of victory. So yeah, the offense is a work in progress, and the defense, you're like, can they get better? Yeah, they can. I mean, they held the number 2 offense in the NFL last year that averaged over 30 points a game to 16 points.
Yeah.
And I took a still shot of it on that touchdown. TJ Watt beat the tackle so bad, the tackle reaches back and holds his shoulder and pulls Watt back. And there's no call when they throw it for a touchdown. If he doesn't do that, TJ gets a sack again.
Kyle, I think, was up to at least 6 blatant, obvious holds on TJ that weren't called.
And that was probably in the first quarter. You know what I mean?
I mean, just that we're so blatant that my 15-year-old who is not a football player is like, there's a hold. Where's the flag? You know?
Yeah. Now, this is a good transition because this is something about moving forward.
Yes.
Do you think that TJ Watt, that one weakness to his game, I'm going to mention a weakness in TJ Watt. Maybe I shouldn't. I don't know. One weakness to his game.
I won't be able to use it against you to talk about,
Yeah. I'm only a fair weather fan. Okay. And that is one weakness, the ability to sell the penalty. It's just a mentality. TJ doesn't try to sell the call. He just plays football. Do you think that costs him holds often?
Probably. I'm trying to remember who we saw yesterday. Was it Cam or Wormley? One of the two of them sold a hold on the line because as they started out, they turned. I think it was Cam. Turned to go to the outside as the ball was thrown out there. The guy kind of had a hold of him, back here by the shirt.
Actually, I think it was Wormley. I know what you mean.
And he threw his arms up in the air. Yeah, it was Wormley. And he threw his arms up in the air. And I said to Kyle, I said, some people would say he saw that call, but really what it was is he drew the attention of the referee who then saw the guy holding his jersey and threw the flag.
Exactly. Sorry. My buddy Chris says, good night, fair weather, Dave.
Nice.
That's too much. But yeah, I and that's the kind of thing you need. But
I also wondered that. Sorry, I'm going to bring this one up. Okay. Oh, where did it go? I just skipped. There it is. Sean Manahan. I was thinking this yesterday. TJ's weakness, he's just too darn good. And the refs feel sorry for the O-line.
The O-line.
The refs don't feel like throwing a flag on every single play.
Not only that, and I once again watched the game with my dad, pointed out to my dad, I'm like, there's a hold that you didn't call when the offensive lineman does this.
Yes.
When the offensive lineman does it and then throws his hands up, guess what? He just held, and he knew he held, and everyone knows that he held, except for the person that didn't throw the flag. So I'm not saying
one of those yesterday. I think it was on. It was either on Ingram or Highsmith coming around from the right side.
Yeah.
And one of the guys kind of rode him for a little bit, and then it was like, oh no, they threw the flag.
Yes. So and sometimes, and I have no problem if TJ doesn't do that. If he just goes out there and says, I'm going to beat you anyway, I understand. So
it's amazing how much he beats people being held the amount of time he's being held.
Yes. And this wasn't just a simple thing of, when a player does a rip move and he gets arm barred by the tackle, they're actually allowed to do that. Okay. Now if he doesn't do the rip move, with dipping his arm through, then they're not allowed to just keep their arm out. But they say that's a cause by the defense to put the offense's arm in that position, and therefore they're allowed to keep it there, is kind of the way the rule works. I mean, I'm summing it up. I might not have it exactly right for you, but that wasn't the case with a lot of these holds. I understand that some of the pictures with Watt in the past that you could see that, but so I'm okay if TJ doesn't try to sell the hold calls and he just goes out and does his thing. And you know what? Eventually he should get them because he doesn't try to sell them, because, it's kind of like taking the dive in soccer, or that they've tried to cut out in hockey, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So I kind of, when you're laying on the grass, writhing in pain, like you'll never be able to walk again, hoping a card comes out, and then just hop up and run down to kick the ball again. I mean, come on, you don't need that. But seriously, in other words, Watt almost needs to draw more attention to himself than he already does in order for maybe the refs to pay attention. But got another one this week. And here's the thing. This is my thought when it comes to this game this week. I'm going to lay it on the line right now.
Okay.
Many Steeler fans, if you were to tell them that the Steelers were going to be 500 after their first 2 games, they would say, yeah, that sounds right. But they already won the one they weren't supposed to. So I'm going to tell you this. You can't lose this one. You can't win the game you were supposed to lose and then lose the game you're supposed to win.
Yeah.
So the Steelers right now are 5.5-point favorites at home. Not as much as what it was. I mean, honestly, that's how much the Ratbirds were favored in Vegas. And then Vegas beat them at home. This is in Pittsburgh. It's the same spread as, that spread moved around a lot. That was the one I got locked in on, which I picked the Raiders, by the way. I picked against the Ravens. I guess I should have said more than anything. But this is a game that you can't let down and find a way to not bring this one home. Finally being in front of fans at Heinz Field for the first time in almost 2 years. What do you think?
Yeah, they got to win this one. So I'm sorry, you said something and made me want to bring something up today. So you're actually going to people are probably giving me a hard time, but I made a conscious decision this morning. So in my closet, I wear polo shirts to work most days. And in my closet, I have one purple polo shirt that my wife bought to me for me at one point as a group. They're all kind of pastel-y. Yeah, I got a couple like pastel colors, like a nice blue, a purple, and I think there's a reddish or something that came kind of together as a group. I chose to wear my purple polo to work today.
Just to kind of rub it in a little bit.
Kind of to rub it into the couple Ravens fans that work at the school.
Yeah, just
but of course I wore the purple polo, but the face mask that I had to wear
was black and gold. There you go. Oh, that's funny. That's kind of like me. At one point I had just a plain purple t-shirt when I just got a bunch of t-shirts that were a whole bunch of different colors all together. That one got turned into my cooking / doing dishes / mowing grass shirt until it wasn't purple anymore. It was cruddy colored instead. I'm like, I'm not wearing that out in public, which is funny because my daughter actually has a purple Steelers hat. We got it off Steelers.com.
Yeah.
That she has a purple Steelers hat. My daughter's obsessed with the color purple, but her name is Violet. So I'm kind of okay with that, but she understands that it's not because of that team that's also in the AFC North. Back to this game.
All right, back to this game. Okay. Here's some. I got a couple of points I'll bring up, and they're probably some of the same things you want to bring up. First of all, the offensive line has to play well because what's that? Oh, now I lost his name. I was sitting there thinking of it, which is why I wanted to bring it up first.
You got Crosby, you've got Nassib, you've got
No, it was Crosby. Crosby was just. I mean, he was just playing, in a different gear last night.
Now, was he that good, or was the Ravens line that bad?
That's what I'm not sure about.
This is what I like.
He's the one that kept turning Big Al into the turnstile here and there.
I've said it. This will be 4 straight years now, 4 straight seasons that I've said this ever since I was started writing with Behind the Steel Curtain, your one-stop shop with all things Pittsburgh Steelers.
Blah, 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 blah.
Week 2 is what puts week 1 into perspective.
Yep.
You know, I'll give you an NFC example. Were the Saints that good, or were the Packers that bad?
Yeah.
Or is it a little bit of both? You got to see what they both do this week.
Yep.
You know, you can even look at the Steelers. The Steelers beat the Bills last week. The Bills traveled to Miami. If they stomped the Dolphins, well, first of all, the Steelers taking down the Bills might have done the Bills a favor. You know what I'm saying? It might have caused them to say, you know what? We're not, we don't want to be paper champions. Let's get this together. But if they go down there and stomp the Dolphins, that puts more, raises up that level of victory for the Steelers even more, if you know what I'm saying. If they go down there and go 0-2, you're like, maybe that's not that impressive a victory. It's when you beat a team that's supposed to be good, you beat them early in the season, and at the end of the year, in past years, because it was 16 games, the team ends up 4-12. That doesn't mean anything. Like when you beat a 2-0 team in week 3, and the team goes on to only win 6 games, that wasn't that big of a victory when it's all said and done. So we're going to start to get perspective with week 2. Now, this is the only AFC matchup this week of 2 teams that are 1-0. The only AFC matchup. There's 2 in the NFC, 1 in the AFC. So this is a big game. This is still a big game. But after you go out and take care of business in Buffalo, you can't get complacent. You've got to have a great week of practice and come home to do it at home, because you can't turn around and drop this one. Right?
That's right. You can't drop this one.
So you were exactly right with, I think the most important place to look is going to be that tough defensive front of the Raiders going up against the Steelers offensive line.
Yes.
I think that's a key matchup. How do you feel about
the other key matchup is just flip-flop the whole thing.
Yeah.
We have a chance for our defensive front to just totally obliterate the Raiders offensive line. Even more than what I think they could do to ours.
Yes. I was looking at PFF scores of offensive tackles. And the Raiders, Leatherwood was the next to lowest score and everything. He was actually worse than Villanueva, who was really far down there. Villanueva had the worst pass blocking score of any tackle in the NFL this week. He had a 13.4. Nice. My goodness. But you got Chris Hubbard played for the I didn't realize he played significant snaps. He played 39 snaps for the Brown team. Sorry, got distracted there. He didn't do very well. He's towards the bottom of the list. So that is something that's really important, is what are they going to do with their young tackle that's going to have to go out there and try to block one Trent Jordan Watt?
Yeah.
You're exactly right. Can their offensive line handle the Steelers' defensive front?
Correct.
So
and honestly, the one person on their offense is, in air quotes, scary.
Yeah.
For us. And who would that be?
That would be the quote unquote tight end, who's not really a tight end.
Correct. That would be Mr. Waller.
Mr. Waller. Coach Tom brought it up today. 19 targets last night.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, if you treat him like a tight end, you're going to get killed. But if you treat him, he said he's the closest thing to Chase Claypool because of his size and everything, but yet he goes out and plays receiver. You've got to have a special plan for him. And they asked him about that special plan. He's like, I'm not telling you. He didn't say it that way. He's like, I'm not going to disclose that at this time. Thank you, Coach Tomlin. But, he acknowledges that.
I won't disclose it at this time either. I have my thoughts of what the Steelers could do with him.
Yeah.
But I'm going to hold those to me because, John Gruden's watching our podcast, and I don't want to give anything away.
Yeah, you don't want to let Gruden. No, sorry, I can't even do a Frank Caliendo impersonating John Gruden. I don't know if you realize that he released a video last night after the game.
Did he?
Or it might have been this morning. Sometime I saw it early this morning.
Yeah, when kind of like, Yep, you got to get that done, man.
Yeah. So pretty good stuff. So I like that this is in Pittsburgh, but we know that traditionally the Steelers have not done well against that team.
Raiders.
But you know what? They've never played them when they weren't in California.
Correct.
So maybe because it's the Vegas Raiders, it's a whole new thing. I still think they're the Oakland Raiders who play their games in Las Vegas. That's really who they are. So, but now you've got a game under your belt. The Steelers have to take the mentality of that wasn't the peak. That started the climb.
Yes.
Having that big of a win to start, that's not the peak. That just starts the climb. You must climb from here. You must work hard to get better. And
hey, there are guys on that team like Cam Hayward, Ben Roethlisberger, some of those vet guys that would, after the game, I'm sure said, hey, we expected to win. We don't go out there and think we're not going to win. We go out there and think we're going to win.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we are to the time of the show where we want to try to make sure we give you guys enough time to get your scores in. Rich is about ready to give his score prediction for this week. I saved mine for the Steelers preview. Didn't have as much time to think about it as because really you couldn't do the score before last night's game. You had to see how your opposition looked. So with the Bills, I'd been thinking about it for a couple of weeks. Luckily I don't have mine yet, but I hope you'd have it. While you're thinking of it, I want to make sure that people know some things. First of all, if any of you are going to get to this game this weekend, fantastic. It's going to be a great
go to the game. Time to bust out some Renegade.
Yeah, it's fantastic. If you're looking to go to a game later in the season, I still have 2 tickets available in the lower deck end zone for the Monday night game against the Bears and for the game in December against Tennessee. If you are interested in those, make sure you hit me up. You can hit me up on Twitter. It's on the screen if you're watching. It's at STLR Superfandad. If you want to email me, it's at It's STLR Superfandad at gmail.com. You can reach out to me there. I'm giving BTSC people the friends and family rate. Bottom line is I want people to be able to go. So if you're interested in going to those games, contact me and I'll get you all the information. Do you have another one available still?
Either, because I'm only getting rid of one more, but I'm open as to which it would be. It would be the Denver Broncos game on October the 10th or the Cleveland Monday night game on January 3rd.
Gotcha. Okay. One or the other. So if you're interested in any of those games, now your tickets are at upper deck.
Upper deck.
Yeah, mine are lower deck. So that's why they're a little bit price discrepancy, but it is what it is. Rich, I know people were dying to do their scores. Some already put them in there.
Too bad we won't talk. Bring them up.
No, you might be new to this. Okay, Kelvin Colbert Sr. says he's interested. Hit me up. Seriously. Make sure you do it. Do it now.
And if you want mine, go ahead and just hit Dave up and he'll get you to me.
Hit me up either way because I help broker his. But everyone's jumping in, wanting to do their scores. Remember the rules. You might be new to this. I won't bring up any scores until I put the word scores in the live chat. Rich has to give us his first.
Yep. Ready? I've had this one ready for a little bit. Ready? This one, defense continues to dominate. Offense gets it together a little more, finds the end zone a little more often. Final score, Steelers 24, Raiders 14.
24-14 is your score. I now have it up in the live chat. I'm ready for the barrage. If you put it in there already, I'm not going to look at it. You'll have to do it again.
Oh,
what do you know? Who's first? Who's first?
That's because, that's my boy.
It's Scho 2.0. Kyle Schofield, 27-17. Defense comes in clutch. Do you think the Raiders are going to score more than the Bills? Maybe they do. Maybe they do. I don't know.
Well, are you looking at that? Do they get a jump? Do they get a jump touchdown at the end of the game? See, that's part of what I'm thinking.
Exactly. So there you are. You have a 10-point win, 24-14. Kyle has a 10-point win, 27-17. Cree's got 10 points, 26-16 Steelers. Tyler W says 27-14. Garbage time Raiders TD. Yep. Exactly what you said. George Teston says 28-17 Steelers Pittsburgh. And that was Steelers. If you don't put a team, we assume it's Steelers. Okay. 30-12 Steelers. Lake Effect Snow 1. I like that.
Yeah, that's a good one.
31-10 Steelers. Paul
Scherf
Yeah, I almost said Sharif, but no, with the I's before the R. Sorry, Paul. 30-24 Steelers. Outside Steeler fan is Good Guys 27, Raiders 14. Justin Conway 27-13 Steelers. Sean Manahan 27-13 in favor of the Steelers. Christopher 11 says 31-17 Steelers. Steelers Freak says 24-10 Steelers. Joshua Rhodes 35-17. Steeler Chick 46 28-17 Steelers. Garrett Slingerland says 31-24 Steelers. I'm seeing a theme here. Do you see a theme?
Yeah.
Okay. David Poe says 31-16 Steelers.
No.
Sorry. Stillers.
I gotta get it right when they put it.
I'm not reading it with a team every time. I'm just saying the score more than anything.
I know.
Okay. Devin Logan says 21-13 Pittsburgh. Mark Daragotis. I almost said Daragotis, but I almost switched.
That's an A.
I had it.
Yep.
Okay. Steelers 28, Raiders 14. Going all touchdowns there. Yeah, it was interesting to see the Raiders, take that 55-yard field goal to tie the game. That was interesting. Kelvin Colbert Sr., 31-17 Steelers. Brick Quest with the Lego guy. My son would love that. 27-17 Steelers. Brian Brown, this is an interesting one. 24-6 Steelers. I can get behind that one.
Yeah, I can get behind that one. Like that.
Awesome stuff. 1983 Steelers 21-17. Kathy Forid. Steelers 27, Raiders 17. Was that Kyle's too? Yeah, that was Kyle's.
Yeah, that was Kyle's too.
Okay, I almost thought she had the same as you. Thanks, Being Joe, 31-16. Knight Rider 16, 26-21. See, when I say the numbers at the end of the name, Knight Rider says the score will be 26-21 Steelers. Brian Blackstock, 31-17 Steelers. Faustino Flores, 25-23 Steelers. Moneybags, 27-13 Steelers. Bully Mob Kennel, the artist formerly known as Solarverse, 31-6 Steelers. I like that one too. Faceless Man, Steelers 38, Raiders 13. Wes, 42-14, 2 defensive scores, a Minka pick 6, and TJ scoop and score. He's going with 5 takeaways. That would be that. That would be a
dominating defense.
That would be dominating. You know what? I would love that outcome. I'd also be fine if the Steelers win by 1 point. The biggest thing is I want to be talking about a
win. Okay? I want to breathe.
Yes, you want to breathe that in. Greg Schellenberger, 28-25, black and gold, validating week 1. I like that. Joshua Rhodes, 35-17 Steelers. Mark Davison, one of the blokes, 45-0. I'm holding you to that in the article. I'm holding you to that.
You homer.
I'm holding you to that score. He picked the Steelers last week, I'm pretty sure. Gotta love it. Mark Tobin, 28-17 Steelers. He says Pierre gets a pick 6 and Najee runs for 2 TDs. Got to remember that. The Steelers deploy things pretty interesting. They didn't bring Pierre in for nickel. They brought him in for dime and put Sutton back there in his role that he did the dime before. It worked out really well. I don't know if they'll do it all the time, but it worked out good.
But it worked.
Jeffrey pointed that out. Speaking of Jeffrey, he's coming up here. Okay. Reginald Rivers, 27-17 Steelers. Jeffrey Benedict, Steelers 13-7 on the last second TD to Najee. I'm holding you to that one too in the staff predictions there, Jeffrey. I'm going to see it in the article. Okay. Michael O'Malley says 35-17 Steelers. And George OTJ, 35-9 Steelers. Says a defensive score, another turnover that sets up another touchdown. DeMarcus says 42-10 Steelers. Jennifer, 21-10 Steelers. Hey, Felicia, 27-20 Steelers. And she changed her picture. That's great. So we can definitely say, hey, Felicia. Demetrios says 27-12 Steelers. All field goals for the Raiders. Okay. Illegal Italian, 16-13 Steelers. Ooh, interesting. Now people are commenting on another one, seeing if I find any more. Cree wants my email one more time. It's very simple. Cree, you see my Twitter handle there? STLR Superfan Dad, put on @gmail.com right after it. Okay, that's what we got. Jerry Cherry, thank you, Jerry Cherry, 30-23 Steelers. Okay, Robert Jacobs, 24-10 Steelers. Someone's, did I skip? I don't think I skipped, did I? Robert Jacobs says 24-10 Steelers. Then we get Leon saying 24-13 Steelers win. Bala 23-20. I almost messed it up again with the name at the end. Says 23-20 Steelers. Okay. And I like the Akuta 70 says what I said. Who cares as long as they win? It's fun. It's fun to predict the score. That's what we're trying to do. But you know what? That's the big thing. David J. Renshaw, 31-14 Steelers. I saw another one there. Did you get that one?
That just put one up.
Did you? Oh, there it is. Mark Lee, 27-14 Steelettes. I know. It's a typo. I'm not going to give you a hard time, Mark. 27-14 Steelers. So, wow, you guys are really pouring these out tonight. Wayne Suchi? Wayne. We'll just say Wayne. 34-21. Duberg. Tony Ringor, 34-27 Steelers. Daniel Vaughn, 27-14 Steelers. Josh Parker, 28-17 Steelers with a Minka pick six.
And I got one more.
Yeah, you got one more. And that's Robert Jacobs, Steelers 35-14. I tell you what. Woo! Man. You all did not disappoint there. You really poured out the scores. You're showing up.
I did notice one thing.
Answer the question from the show.
They are excited about the Steelers moving forward. You know how
is it
it's
too
easy
early
to
get excited?
No,
it's not too early
because every single pick was a Steelers win.
Exactly.
And that's because people are excited.
Because we're excited. And it's better, you're excited after a big win. That's what you're supposed to be as a fan base. You don't want to be excited and already have week one, chalked in as a victory because the other team didn't do as well in the playoffs last year, because then you end up asking yourself questions all week about what happened, like the very passionate fans in Buffalo are having to do right now. I'm not gonna knock them. I mean, they have a passionate fan base. They really do. They were a little bit cocky going into this one, and it's kind of nice when you can put people in their place.
Let them eat some humble pie.
Yeah. And it might just be exactly what they needed. Okay. Wayne said I pronounced his name right, but I pronounced it two different ways, so I don't know which one was right. We got to do one more. Nate Drew says 31-13 Steelers. Right. So I'm excited. I'm ready to do this. The Steel. I mean, I hate to say it. I feel this is a must-win game. You can't go into Buffalo and win that one and then come home and not take care of business when you're favored at home. So Steelers just got to take care of business. Anything else you want to say to close up here, Rich?
No, other than it's nice to be back into Steeler football. I will take a quick plug and say after the game on Sunday, check out my knee-jerk reaction article.
Oh, it was a good one this week.
Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah.
Kyle and I were having a blast during the game, even though they were sucking at first. So, but
and people got to remember, these are knee-jerk reactions. There was someone a comment that said, "Oh, if you go back and see the replay, you missed the point of a knee-jerk reaction."
Yeah, it's not a replay. It is what spills out of my mouth right when something happens.
Bottom line is, if I'm not sitting on the couch next to you to watch, it's what you would be saying to me.
Yes,
that's what it is.
Well, really, what it ends up being is what I'm saying to Kyle.
What you're saying to Kyle. So,
and some of it's what Kyle's saying to me.
Hey, you all have been stepping up. Our podcast downloads are through the roof. We appreciate. We couldn't do this without you. I mean, Rich and I would still probably talk about Steelers stuff anyway, but it's not the same without you all.
It's a lot more fun.
Both listening on the audio side and participating in the live chat. If you are only a YouTube or Facebook person, you are missing so much other podcasts that we have and some really great stuff. If you're not part of the Ride or Die crew, you need to make sure you're checking out Jeff's Let's Ride on Monday, Wednesday, Fridays. I don't miss it. I'm part of the crew. Then I've got Stat Geek on Thursdays, Michael Beck on Tuesdays with the live mic. We've got noon shows. We got a whole lineup there. I don't want to go into all of them, miss them, because we're over our time because you guys gave us so many scores, which I'm not going to complain about one bit. Make sure you're checking out BehindTheSteelCurtain.com. It really is your one-stop shop for all things Pittsburgh Steelers. Lots of content. We're wrapping up from the coverage from the game this past week and transitioning into looking forward to the game coming up this week. Just let's be excited about the Steelers. Rich, we get to sit back, watch them play, get to see those terrible towels going at Heinz Field, hopefully get to hear that Renegade in the background coming out of commercial, and we get to go for that 2-0. What do you think about that?
Oh, home opener. Can't wait.